ones who are new to the American context of teaching. Today we're going to be looking at classroom management. And we're going to be looking at them as those strategies that the teacher implement in our classroom to create an environment free of distractions that allows her to efficiently navigate the teaching learning process. So she's able to teach efficiently and students are able to learn. Once again, thanks for joining me and let's get it. There are many theorists who speaks about how important classroom management is to learning, especially within our classrooms today that are full of diverse cognitive, social, and emotional abilities. Optimally, the core objective is to get students to change behavior intrinsically, that later on they are able to display the desired behavior without much monitoring. The theorist B.F. Skinner can be seen as the godfather for classroom management. His theory on operant conditioning has dominated my early years in college, to teaching practice, to my early years in teaching, and still is prominent in some classrooms. Skinner's theory focuses on using reward and punishment as a means of shaping students' behavior. Whereas when students displays a desired behavior, they are awarded with some sort, whether it's a candy or some privileges, or praised. And when they display an undesired behavior, then they are receive punishment, whether this be reprimand or loss of privilege. Now, nobody can deny the powerful use of operant conditioning in our classroom. But today we are more diverse and we have become more aware of the different diversified behaviors and whatever spectrums. So I believe that we should move away from the reward for the behavior and move into and look into, capitalize and use some of the theorist's strategies that speaks to developing a more intrinsic results from our students. And we're going to look into some of those. One such theorist is Jacob Conan. I hope I'm saying that right. Now, Conan emphasizes the with-itness ability of a teacher. This is where she's aware of everything that is happening in the classroom and can promptly respond to any distractions. I say she, but it could be he. You know how it is. Now, the key aspect of with-itness is the overlapping concept. This is where the teacher is able to give instructions while monitoring behavior. What does this look like? Say, for example, you're teaching, specifically you're introducing a lesson and you have already established your rules in your classroom, as well as some good habits of a good listener. Hands and feet together, eyes forward, keep eye contact and all that good stuff. Now, while you're teaching, you have Jane and Johnny who are sitting at the back of the class making paper balls and throwing it across at each other. So you're in the middle of your teaching and you have 80% of the class attention, but Johnny and Jane is a distraction to you. Instead of stopping abruptly in the lesson and say, Johnny, Jane, I've had enough of this. This is the last day. I'm going to be calling your parents. You don't do that, because now the entire class is distracted by that. The withingness strategy, at this point, you will continue your lesson, same tone of voice, and you're walking in the direction of Johnny and Jane, and at the same time, you're talking through your lesson and your students are following through. You can ask a question. What did I say earlier about whatever concept you are teaching? And I say, very good, you're practicing good listening skills. And by that time, you're by Jane and Johnny, you tap on the table. Come on, Jane. Come on, Johnny. You know we don't do that when we're listening, right? Remember what we talk about, hands and feet together, right? We're quiet and we're paying attention. Right, come on, let's get in. And you move around the room, same tone, no sudden movement to cause any distraction. And you're back in the center of your classroom. And now you have 100% engagement as opposed to Johnny. Another aspect of Conan's theory is a management of transitions. Transitions are the movements from one activity to the next. How smooth a transition is dependent on the use of cues or signals to let students know that, hey, one activity is over and we're moving into the next activity. Say, for example, they are doing individual reading where everybody is on their carpet somewhere on their cushion in their own little world reading, and the reading music is on and the vibes is mellow and all that good stuff. You could have an alarm that was set for 30 minutes or 20 minutes reading time. Now they know that when the alarm goes, reading time is over and they're going to move into the writing workshop. Now you would have already explained to students, right, whether in the morning or prior to the activity, that as soon as the alarm goes, we put up our readers in the reading basket and we go to our cubbies and take our notebooks, get to our seat and sit quietly and wait on the teacher. Or if it is not done that way, as soon as the alarm goes, we know that reading is over. We put up our reading books in the buckets and take a seat. And then the group who is responsible for handing out materials that week is going to get all the writing notebooks and then hand them out. But of course, this would have had to be in some sort of procedure that was discussed with students, and as such, you're there to ensure that they follow through. Now, this strategy emphasizes clear and concise instructions during transitions to minimize confusions and distraction and maximize on engagement. Now, another theory we could look at is William Glazer's choice theory, which emphasizes giving students the choice to have autonomy over their social and emotional behavior as well as their learning. Even more importantly, the choice theory emphasizes the importance of the development of teacher-student relationship, on the belief that if students feel respected by their teachers within the learning environment, they are more likely to respond to redirection. If they don't like you, they're not going to respond well to your redirection. They're going to be rebellious. I mean, we have the ones who like us and they're rebellious much more. Now, there are various ways that we could look at as a means of getting to know our students. But I want to talk about it in the context of my experience and how it helped me. As a Jamaican, I've taught all the grades back home, and coming here, my first grade was a fourth grade. Going in there, I believe that all I needed to do was to learn the curriculum, the subject area, and the concepts I'm teaching, and it should be good. But I found that during instruction, I would have students calling out, "Hey, Ms. Livermore, what kind of houses do they have in Jamaica? How many beaches are there? Do you go to the beach? Do you have children?" And they would want to know everything about me. I found this quite distracting and disturbing because coming from Jamaica, no student's going to ask me that. But I realized it's a cultural aspect of things. I'm not from there. I'm foreign to them and they want to know. But nonetheless, it was a distraction for them as well as for me. So using the morning talk time, I decided to get to know them. So I said, okay, morning talk time is a part of their daily schedule. And I don't want to use 5 days of it to talk about me. So I would use like 2 days. maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays and change it up, but definitely 2 days where they can ask me anything about Jamaica. Anything, right? But only within this time. So I would put my timer on and I said, okay, go. And whatever questions they have, they will answer. But the catch is they cannot ask me anything about myself or where I'm from during instruction. And as such, that was a good, it worked out so well because then I was able to get through morning talks based on the regular schedule and move into my lessons. Another strategy I used was just observing my students while they work in groups or on teams, right? How they interact with each other. What do they talk about outside of the lesson, of course? Just to learn their interests, I'll be walking around and, sometimes even sitting down because you get the best results when you are not so close to them. They're a little bit more free and then they behave more realistic. As well as those downtime, for example, when it's recess time, and we're not able to go outside maybe because it's raining or for whatever reason, then I just allow them free time. Allow them free time and just observe, just to learn a way to tap into, how they think, how they behave, just to spark a conversation because it's a means of building relationship individually. It's a wonder how some of us teachers don't have multiple personalities. It's hard work getting to know these students on that level where you can, tap into who they are and, talk to them. But the objective of tapping into them is to kind of, develop conversation and rapport to show that you care, you know them well enough, you can chit chat with them. I can share so many experiences, but one that stood out to me was with this little boy, first year in fourth grade. And he was just such a man. He walked like a man, he does everything except, learn what he's supposed to learn. And he was very distracted and rude. I mean, I would come home and have nightmares about this little guy. And honestly, on the days that he doesn't show up are quite nicer. But honestly, I wasn't comfortable with that because, that would be like leaving a child behind, please. So pay attention, especially our boys. They need so much more grace, And I came home, and just a side note, being reflective is an awesome strategy. Being a reflective teacher, because it was on this basis that I realized and came up with the intel as to how to tap into my little guy here. So I was home and things running over in my head, and I remember that this boy, every time it's lunchtime on certain days, he would be the first in line, excited, not even packing up his desk or chair or anything, excited, first in line, right? And he's talking about, oh, I know what they're cooking today and it's going to be good and all that stuff, right? And then at some other points, he would not be in so much of a hurry. Oh, that lunch is going to be trash, man. They don't know how to cook, man. They don't know how to cook. And I said, wait a minute, maybe this could be a talking point for me. He's in our usual small group, and, I usually have to take him away to teach him again. It was quite rough. And I remember the next day I went to school and I said, okay, this is the day I'm going to do this right now. And we did our small group and everybody, completed their work and he was behind. So I just pulled him up and said, let's go over here and work on this concept. But I wasn't going to work on the concept because then it would have been too much. This was just my opportunity that I'm utilizing to talk to him. So while I was there and I said, okay, let's go over this. And I said, let's not go over this. Why you always talk about food? Can you cook? And he looked at me and said, yeah, what do you mean? I can cook. I said, what can you cook? You're 9. Yeah, I can cook. I cook for my brothers and sisters every day. My mama don't do nothing. She just sleep. And I hear the entire story. Now, this is a little boy who cooks for his brothers and sisters every day. And he told me that the last thing he cooked was lasagna. That was the day before. I can't even cook lasagna. So I said, how did you cook? How do you cook that? How do you know how to cook that? Man, I just go online on YouTube and I looked it up and I cook it and so on and so forth. You should see the smile on his face. Oh, so cute too. But I tell you, from that day, you could see him walk into the classroom with a little bit more humph, enthusiasm in interacting with me within my small group. And I'll tell you something, that boy started to keep up with the rest of the group, you know. And I said, okay, well, this is working. This is working, so I have to continue with it. Yes, and I told my curriculum teacher, and she said, yes, that's good. I know of another strategy. I said, what's that? I used to date my students. So then I came up with it. I created a list of my students, cut their names out, keeping a beautiful, it was a gift box. And when I went with it in the morning, I said, hey, I got something new that we got to talk about, right? So I told them that no, because at that time, we had to go to the cafeteria to monitor our students. Whether you want to stand or sit with them, that's your business, but you had to monitor them. So I said, we have a new thing that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to have lunch dates with you guys. And you're like, lunch date? What? Lunch date? So I explained how it's going to work. So what I did was cut up their names, all of the names, put it in the box, and I would shake it up and choose the first person who's going to be my date. Now, of course, I explained to them how this works. So all of us go to the cafeteria, we sit around the same lunch area, but the person who I'm having the lunch date with will be to the further front, just you and me, baby, just you and me. And then we talk about what a date is. How do you behave on a date? How do you dress for a date? And that kind of thing. Show them videos of a date. And then I said, okay, Elijah, you're my date for next week, Monday. Okay, and I would say out loud, ooh, I wonder what I'm going to wear for Monday, because I want them to know that we're dressing up. And it was so amazing, because when they saw me and Elijah with the date, right? And the rule of the date is we talk about anything, everything. So I would ask them questions like, what do you like to do? What's your favorite show? Why is it your favorite? That kind of thing. Do you have a best friend? Why is the person? We just talk about things, and we laughed, and it was fun. And the rest of them were looking on like, what is going on here? So everybody became excited. And as such, I went down the line. And having gotten through the dates with my 20-odd students, it was awesome. It changed the dynamics of the classroom. So definitely, I mean, all those strategies and theories about classroom management, but getting to know your students is the gold, is golden to your success. So, work very hard at that. Classroom management begins that very first day of school by establishing expectations, rules, and consequences. The importance of establishing these are supported by theorists like Lee Carter and Frederick Jones, just to name a few. Expectations or routines are those things that students must do correctly in order to get through an activity smoothly, right? Without order, there is chaos. For example, when students arrive in the morning, what are they supposed to do? There should be a clear expectations for this. When you arrive, you go to the early morning work bucket, you get your early work, you sit quietly, you complete your work. If you're done before the time is out, you read a book. If you don't clearly state what the expectations are, then students who arrive early will run around in your classroom and drive you crazy from 7 a.m. and it continues throughout. We don't want that, right? If they're supposed to use the science corner, what are the expected behaviors? When I go to science corner, I make sure I don't taste anything. I don't touch unless I ask. Anything I move, I put it back in the spot where I took it from. That kind of a thing, right? What is the expectation if I need to use a restroom? I raise my hand, put up two fingers. Two fingers mean restroom. One finger means I have a question or I need a pencil or something. Whatever is established between you and understood by the student. So it's an understanding between the both of you. So of course, these expectations must be taught. And that is why it is important to ensure that you establish this in the beginning of your school year. And it should continue throughout until students correctly practices them. Now, having that should lend some order to your classroom. But then we also have to consider, also on the first day of school, coming up with our rules and our consequences. Now, the rules are usually based on the student handbook mostly, but definitely it is kind of crafted in a way that it supports the orderliness of your classroom. Now, they advise you to allow students to come up with rules, and that sounds cute but not quite practical. So what I usually do is have my rules ready. I know my 5 rules that I am going to use. They are relative to the student handbook and they will very much help the order of my classroom. So say for example, just to incorporate the fact that they need to have some sort of engagement or contribution to making the rules. I know that one of my rules is going to be we should raise our hand to speak if somebody else is speaking, right? So I would come up with something like, class, we need to come up with some rules, right? And I give them situations. What if we're in here and we're talking about a topic? It is exciting and everybody has something that they want to share. But I am talking and Denise is talking, Joshua is talking, Cherry is talking. What is going to happen to that? They're going to tell you, oh, you're going to have confusion. You're not going to hear what you're saying. And da, 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 da. They tell you, okay. Then what is a rule that we could come up with to prevent that from happening? So right there, they're led to believe that yes. I mean, they actually do contribute to coming up with the rule, but you kind of steer it in a way where they get to where you need them to be, both in thinking, because you want them to raise their hand and so on and so forth. Maximum, I think, maybe about 5 to 6 rules. But what should be covered in these rules are: 1, students' behavior; 2, how they interact with each other and the teacher. Definitely, because you have to cultivate an environment of respect across the board. So whatever other rules you want to include, make sure 1 or 2 of your rules cover this: interaction with each other. On top of creating rules, we also form or come up with a social contract, right? It stems from being respectful in the classroom, which is usually one of our rules as well. So it kind of break it down a little bit further in terms of, as a student, my responsibilities are in interacting with my teacher. I will be respectful, and in doing so, I will not talk back. If I am not clear on something, I will raise my hands, or I will ask questions to clarify before giving an attitude, that kind of a stuff, and how the teacher will react to me. And this is my part. Well, I usually write that I will be respectful to my students. I will listen to what they have to say and have a discussion to clarify, that kind of a thing. And that goes in tandem with the rules of your classroom. Nonetheless, bear in mind, the rule is not just to have the rules up there, right? It must be followed specifically and more importantly in the beginning of the school year, because you want to set the precedence where as we move into the school year, we no longer have to keep going back. You know, their behavior towards them is intrinsic. Now, along with our rules, we must have consequences. This is where you have rule 1 and you have rule 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how I do it, right? Now, all of my consequences are based on each of those rules. So for one break, if you break the rule for the first time, we're going to have dialogue about it, right? Find out what's happening, and we try to correct our behavior. Hey, I saw you doing that, and you know that's a rule of our classroom. What's happening? And if it didn't know, you know, you can, okay, well, you know, I understand, we're just learning, so now is your time to use this opportunity and try not to do that again. Okay, because the next time, then we really have to have a conversation and take 2 points off of dojo. You know, that kind of a thing. So first, we're gonna talk about it one-on-one, give you the opportunity to redirect yourself. The second time, I will be taking points, right? The third time, I will be making contact with mom to let her know that we have already been over this 2 times already, and this is your 3rd time doing the same thing. And then lastly, then we're gonna have to have some referral. You're going to the office, right? So that kind of thing. So you don't need to have like one rule and then 2 consequences based on that rule. You just create your consequences based on all your rules. It's a process for all of them. You apply and reinforce your rule, but at the same time, use it as a teaching opportunity to remind them and get them to reflect on what they're doing and give them a goal to work towards. Right, excellent. Now, of course, you will have to post your rules as well as your consequences. And I usually do this at the front of my class. They're up there. And for the first couple of weeks in our morning talk, then we'll talk about the rules. What does it mean? What does it look like? Right? What does it look like? Tell me about it. So they discuss it, they talk about it, we demonstrate it just for fun. We demonstrate what it looked like. Give them opportunity to create scenarios, right? And enact or act out what it would look like breaking such a rule. Now, another very important aspect of classroom management is classroom arrangement. We talk about classroom arrangement in one of our previous videos. You could go back there and check for more details. But in order for us to design the environment that encourages classroom management and students' desired behavior, we must be able to demonstrate that we can reach them at any given time. We call that teacher presence. So we always strive to arrange our classroom in a way that allows us to quickly move between students and be able to abruptly respond to distractions. Get students to redirect themselves, all right? Get them to pay attention. And for me, one thing that is a part of my strategy is that I have 2 shoes. I have a walk-in shoes and I have a pair of walking around shoes. If you know me, you know. Okay, so I will be walking around in between the tables and chairs, students. You know, when Johnny think I cannot get to him in quick time, I am down there. What are you doing, Johnny? Come on, let's get on track. That kind of stuff. And of course, there are several classroom arrangements that we could look at. Again, go back to the video and you could look at some of those. And of course, I know you have ideas, but in the long and short of it, we should also consider that our classroom arrangement has to do with the dynamics in our classroom. So we have to arrange the classroom in a way that allows students to interact, but at the same time keep discipline in check, right? As well as allow the teaching learning process to do what it does. Teacher teaches, students learn. Now, as it relates to classroom arrangement, from time to time, the classroom arrangement may work in one moment and then in the next moment it does not work. Feel free to change it up to suit you maintaining the discipline in your classroom. Now, for me, we definitely have to group them, which is, it is demanded that we do that now in today's balanced literacy classroom. But oftentimes the grouping dynamics change or it doesn't work. It changes because students become familiar with each other. They become too much of a friends and they would talk and distract each other and so on. At any given time that I realize that my classroom arrangement has changed the dynamics of my classroom relationship, then it's got to be changed. And this is done transparently. I would normally come and say, look, class, we have been sitting in groups for 2-3 weeks. Yes, it worked for a few weeks, which was good. Students were focused and were doing our work, but I realized that persons are more interested in talking about what happened at recess, at lunchtime. We cannot have that. Yes, you're here to socialize, but most importantly, you're here to learn. And it's my responsibility to ensure that you do learn. And one way we get you to learn is for you to pay attention. And if you're sitting with your friends who are always talking about things that you're not supposed to be talking about, then you're not going to learn anything. So come tomorrow or come next week or come whatever, I will be changing up the classroom. And whenever I say that, I always use regimental arrangement. They hate this. I don't do it for long, but just to bring back the dynamics. And then I said, okay, we're going to try this arrangement for a few weeks and see how it works. I mean, if we can focus and do what we're supposed to do, then who knows? We can find another arrangement where we can sit with our friends. But this time, I bet you will learn that we should also have fun, but pay attention, right? And so on. So definitely look into the behaviors that develop intrinsic motivation for desired behavior. And I mean, we can always fall back on the reward system. It always works at some point. But for me, I mostly use the reward system as a group for my entire class. So if behavior is not so well, I would make it a class effort. I would say, okay, class, listen, you are not behaving well. I've observed you walking the line and you know the procedure for that and nobody's doing it. As such, come next week. I said next week because I want to give them time to make the change. Right? Or come Friday, if I see some improvement on that, then guess what? You have a treat. What do you want? And you would have already know some of the things that they like and you purchase those and get it. That works for me when I do it on a group level, especially if I want them to work hard at a concept before they do a test. I would say, okay, listen, we do the test on Friday and you score 80% or you score a mastery. I have the party goodies right here ready for you. Man, they will work their hands off to get it. Another effective classroom management strategy that I use too, that is relative to students' behavior and keeping the dynamics in check, is making reference to previous behaviors that they have had, whether it is academically or socially. I would make reference, especially when it's good. So the first term they come in and they did so well, but then when the second term they become so familiar, they lose the grip. So I would say, and I usually kind of say this out loud, I'd be like, Elijah, what is happening? What is happening to you? I want back my Elijah, the one that listens and follows instruction, right? The one that when I ask a question is the first one to answer. I want him back. I want him back. You know, that kind of a thing. And you can see the change immediately or tomorrow. And if you see them make the change, you say, what? Look at you. Now, this is Elijah I'm talking about. You know, that kind of a thing. Just to build a relationship and keep the mood nice and jazzy. Although we're there to work hard, we're also there to play hard. Because as much as we want to deny, you know, students go to school to socialize, not so much to learn, but it is our job to ensure that they learn. So if you can keep a balance between the socializing and the learning, then that is awesome. So this takes us to the end of our session. I want to thank you for joining me, and I absolutely hope that you're walking away with something wonderful that can help you in your classroom. Have a wonderful new school year